Hey friends, here's an update on the planted ecosystem tank I began about 4 months ago or so with just a couple little pieces of Java fern, and I want to give you an update here as I've learned a lot over the past few months. Notably, you've got to front load your planted tank with lots of plants. That's going to mitigate algae growth in the inside of the tank, which happened earlier, and along with snails that will eradicate any algae, of course, but really front load your tank with plants. Now, the predominant plant in here that's really taken off, the best of all the plants I've tried, is anacharis Elodia egeria. I'll put the names in the description of the video, but in the past month or so, this thing has really been doing great. You can see the roots taking hold in the substrate here, which is boiled beach sand, which much of the magnetite removed with a magnet. And I want to show you, I separated some of the beautiful garnet sand from that beach sand to just show you what a delightful color that is, the red garnet. And there's a lot of that in this substrate as well. So the anacharis is really liking that. You also may note these baby snails here. There's one right there. And I removed those with a turkey baster because there are just too many throughout the tank, and I had to essentially start from scratch after I had an overgrowth of the pond snails, and had to really start from scratch because the water was just getting brown and smelling bad because I didn't have all these plants in it before, as many of the plants, and you really need a lot of plants to absorb the waste from the decomposing, as well as any algae growth. The plants will compete for the nutrients in the water and the sunlight with the algae, and you want the plants to win over that algae. Now let's take a peek down inside the tank, because I've also got some duckweed in here right on top there. That's doing pretty well also. Now, let's go for a search in this tank to show you the big snail, the resident snail that I'm keeping in here. Here's a good look at my resident king snail here. Keeping one adult snail in there. In a 1 gallon tank, that's sufficient. It can't really support more than that, but you see I do have to do some culling of these baby snails very soon here. You can see one in the background there, and there. So I'll be getting rid of those just in a couple days here. Should also mention that the Java fern window love that I initially planted, either I did not front load the tank with enough Java fern, or it's just the conditions for this particular tank just were not ideal because it's pretty much died off. I've got one small piece of that in here, whereas the anacharis is just loving this planted bowl. And the duckweed, or I called it duckweed previously, it's actually pearlweed, is doing quite well as well, and that floats on top. So those are the two plant varieties that I discovered are really thriving in here after trial and error. I hardly put any water in this tank at all, just maybe like this much every 3 weeks. After I cull those baby snails, I just add a little bit of water in there. The boiled driftwood you see down here is all red oak, a nice hardwood, and when that gets saturated with water after a couple weeks, it sinks to the bottom. I took out all the rocks in here as well, because the driftwood is just sitting down there nice and firm. And I only have about 3 hours of light here, facing east in the winter. So, you know, for any indoor plants, really I can only grow fern in this apartment. And this planted ecosystem tank really is a lot of fun because you can grow something really cool and unusual in your living area in a low light condition. So thanks for checking in this morning on the ecosystem planted tank. Be sure to post your comments below. And if you have any questions about this hobby, I'd be happy to respond.